November 12, 1978. East Berlin. 11:17 p.m. It was bone-chillingly cold outside. The wind howled, slipping through the cracks of the old wooden window frame and creeping into the room like an icy ghost. Yet, inside, 22-year-old Lukas Hartmann was sweating. Beads of perspiration formed on his forehead. Lukas wasn't just your average Joe. He was the pride of East Germany, a Grenztruppen, a border guard. His day job, protecting socialism and stopping anyone foolish enough to try and hop the wall to the west. But tonight, there was no rifle in his hands. Instead, he was gripping his father's old field radio, a Russian R311 model. The room was dead silent. The only thing breaking the quiet was the steady hiss of static coming from the radio speaker. Lukas had been trying to fix the thing. His father, Hans Hartmann, was just a mid-level government bureaucrat, or so Lukas had always thought. The old man had passed away last week from a heart attack, and this radio was the only keepsake he'd left behind. But the moment Lukas pried open the back panel, his fingers brushed against something that definitely didn't belong there. Tucked under the tubes, taped to the metal casing with Scotch tape, was a small notebook. The paper was yellowed with age. Lukas gingerly flipped through the pages. This wasn't a diary. It was filled with rows of numbers, codes, and specific radio frequencies. 2150 kilohertz, 3200 kilohertz, and next to them, scrawled in small handwriting, HVA Moscow uplink. Lukas's heart hammered against his ribs. HVA, the Hauptverwaltung Aufklärung, the foreign intelligence arm of the infamous Stasi. Why the hell would a boring civil servant have top-secret Stasi radio codes? Suddenly, a memory from his childhood flashed in his mind. His father used to say, "Lukas, the people on the other side of the wall aren't the enemy. The enemy hides within our own shadows." He never understood what that meant. Until now. Lukas flipped to the last page of the notebook. No codes there. Just a clear, handwritten instruction. And it wasn't directed at some West German spy. It was addressed to the commander of Lukas's own unit. In a split second, Lukas's entire world tilted on its axis. His father hadn't been just a civilian. He was a sleeper agent. And this radio wasn't for listening to music. It was a direct line to Moscow. But Lukas hadn't realized the terrifying part yet. The moment he turned the knob to tune into that secret frequency, the static hiss cut out. Dead air. Then, a mechanical voice broke through. Someone was monitoring that frequency. And right at that moment, somewhere in East Berlin, a red light had just started flashing. They knew. Someone had just activated his father's radio. Right on cue, the screech of tires on pavement echoed from the street below. A black Volga slammed to a halt outside. The glare of its headlights cut through Lukas's window, blinding him. The Stasi is never late. Lukas realized then that he was no longer a border guard. He was prey. 11:22 p.m. The slam of the Volga's car door cracked through the night like a gunshot. Heavy boots hit the pavement, fast, purposeful. Two men. Long gray trench coats. Lukas didn't need an ID to know who they were. His body went numb, but the border guard training hardwired into his brain suddenly snapped into gear. There was no time for fear. There was only evasion. Lukas killed the radio knob, though he knew the damage was done. The signal had been tracked. He grabbed the notebook, his father's cursed diary, and shoved it into the inner pocket of his uniform jacket. The radio was dead weight. It had to stay. Herr Hartmann, open up. A fist pounded against the front door downstairs. They didn't ring doorbells. They didn't ask for permission. Lukas bolted for the kitchen, keeping the lights off. He fumbled with the window latch in the dark. Outside, snow was still falling. The old iron fire escape was slick with ice. Just as he swung a leg over the sill, the crash of splintering would echoed from the hallway. "Search the place. He's still here," a heavy voice bellowed. Lukas held his breath, praying the white puffs of condensation from his lungs wouldn't give him away in the freezing air. He moved down the metal steps like a stray cat, silent, invisible. As his feet touched the dark alley below, flashlight beams swept across his living room window above. They were already inside. Lukas ran, not on the main streets, but through the maze of back alleys of East Berlin that he knew like the back of his hand. He knew where the shadows were deepest. 15 minutes later, he collapsed behind the ruins of an abandoned factory near the Spree River. His chest heaved like a blacksmith's bellows. His hands were shaking violently, not from the cold, but from pure rage. Under the dying light of a street lamp, he pulled the notebook out again. He flipped through his father's handwriting until his eyes locked onto a specific date. October 5th, 1978, entry. Sector 4 routine adjustment. 0200 to 0400 hours, no guard rotation. The realization hit Lukas like a physical blow. Sector 4. That was his patrol zone. 2 defectors had slipped through that exact sector last month. The investigation had been brutal. Everyone assumed the guards had failed. But now the truth was crystal clear. It wasn't incompetence. It was a leak. And the leak was his father. All those dinner table conversations, Lukas venting about shifts, blind spots, searchlight schedules. His father hadn't been listening as a parent. He was mining him for intel. Lukas had been played. His uniform, his oath, his duty. His father had sold it all to Moscow. Suddenly, a small slip of paper fluttered out from the notebook. Lukas snatched it up. It contained a name and an address. If cover is blown, proceed to location. Code name, Eclipse. Lukas recognized the address. It was a cafe near Checkpoint Charlie, a zone strictly off-limits to off-duty border guards. What now? Go back to the barracks? Report this? No. The Stasi believed in guilt by association. He'd be in front of a firing squad by sunrise, executed by his own colleagues. He had 2 choices: turn himself in and pay for his father's sins, or follow this last thread to Eclipse. Sirens wailed in the distance. The citywide manhunt had begun. Lukas Hartmann was no longer just a runaway. He was an enemy of the state. He popped his collar against the wind. Destination, Checkpoint Charlie. 12:45 a.m. Friedrichstrasse, near Checkpoint Charlie. The city wasn't fully asleep. It was holding its breath. At every intersection, police patrols and white Stasi Volgas prowled the streets. Lukas stuck to the shadows. His Grenztruppen uniform was now a bullseye on his back. Anyone who saw him would flag him down. He ducked into a narrow alley and flipped his jacket inside out. The navy blue lining passed for civilian gear in the dark. He tossed his cap into a dumpster. But the boots? There was no hiding those heavy military jackboots. He had to change his walk, slumping his shoulders, dragging his feet like a graveyard shift worker dead on his feet. The address from the notebook was just ahead, Café Moskva. Don't let the name fool you. It was a wretched hive, a watering hole for black marketeers, double agents, and info peddlers. By day, coffee. By night, an intelligence bazaar. Lukas pushed through the door. The air was thick enough to chew on, cigarette smoke and the sour stench of stale beer. The place was quiet. A hulk of a man with a nasty scar under his left eye was wiping down glasses behind the counter. Lukas didn't approach the bar. He took a corner booth, keeping his head on a swivel. His father's note said, codename, Eclipse. But was Eclipse a person or a signal? Then he saw it. At a table by the window opposite the bar sat an old-timer. A cup of stone-cold coffee sat in front of him. He was holding a newspaper, Neues Deutschland, but he was holding it upside down. Classic tradecraft. An upside-down paper was the universal sign. I'm open for business. Heart pounding against his ribs like a sledgehammer, Lukas approached the table. Was he walking into a trap? Was this guy Eclipse or just another Stasi plant? Lukas stood over the table and kept his voice low. The sky is clear tonight. No moon. It wasn't a code he knew, just a gamble. The man didn't lower the paper. He spoke calmly. There's no moon, because there is an eclipse. Lukas let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Relief? Terror? He couldn't tell. He slid into the chair opposite the man. You're Hans's kid. The man finally lowered the paper, locking eyes with Lukas. His gaze was cold, flinty. You shouldn't be here. Your old man wanted to keep you out of this game. Protect me, Lukas hissed, leaning in. The Stasi just kicked in my door. They're hunting me down. My father sold out my unit's intel and framed me as a traitor. The man, Eclipse, gave a grim, humorless smile. You don't get it, do you? Your father was leaking intel, sure. but not for money, and definitely not for socialism. He wasn't a double agent for Moscow. He was working for the CIA. Lukas froze. The CIA? His father? An American asset? Then the radio? The codes? All a front. A decoy to throw off the Stasi. Eclipse leaned across the table. Hans knew they'd sniff him out eventually. That notebook is his insurance policy. It doesn't just have your unit's patrol logs, kid. It contains a list of names that could gut the entire East German intelligence network. Lukas's hand instinctively went to his pocket. He thought he was carrying proof of his father's betrayal. Instead, he was carrying a nuke. The Stasi is hunting you because they think you know where the book is, Eclipse said rapidly. You're out of time. You have to take that book over the wall. West. Tonight. Are you insane? Lukas shook his head. The border is on high alert. A rat couldn't squeeze through. You can. Eclipse slid a flat, rusted metal key across the table. Sector 4. Your sector. There's an old drainage tunnel underground, sealed up since the war. This opens the access gate. Lukas stared at the key. Sector 4. It was in his father's notes. The old man knew. He had planned this escape route for his son all along. Crash. The front window of the cafe shattered inward. A blinding spotlight from the street washed out the dim interior. A mechanical voice blared from a bullhorn. Lukas Hartmann, we know you're in there. Come out with your hands up. There is no way out. Eclipse calmly took a sip of his cold coffee. He looked at Lukas one last time. Go out through the kitchen. I'll buy you some time. Remember, the truth is waiting on the other side. Lukas bolted for the kitchen. Behind him, the shooting started. 1:10 a.m. Sector 4 Industrial Zone. Lukas's lungs felt like they were filled with broken glass. He had bolted from the alley behind the cafe, scrambled over a crumbled wall, and sprinted straight for the industrial zone. The gunfire behind him had ceased. Eclipse was either dead or in cuffs. Lukas couldn't let that sacrifice be for nothing. Ahead lay the border zone, barbed wire, searchlights, and the looming silhouettes of watchtowers. Lukas knew this terrain better than the lines on his own palm. He knew that at exactly 1:15 a.m., the searchlight on Tower 3 would drift west for exactly 10 seconds due to a mechanical glitch. A glitch he had reported weeks ago but maintenance had never fixed. Those 10 seconds were his only window. Lukas crawled behind the wreckage of a bombed-out warehouse. In front of him was the entrance to the drainage tunnel, a heavy iron manhole cover almost completely hidden by weeds. He checked his watch. 1 hour 14 minutes and 45 seconds. The tower light was sweeping, passed over him. 1, 2, 3, Lukas burst from the bushes. He reached the manhole and jammed Eclipse's key into the rusted padlock. Would it even turn? He twisted it. Stuck. Frozen solid. 5, 6, 7. The searchlight was swinging back. In 3 seconds, he'd be lit up like a Christmas tree. Gritting his teeth, Lukas wrenched the key with everything he had. Click, the lock popped. He heaved the heavy lid aside, slipped into the hole, and dragged the cover back into place just as the blinding white beam swept over the metal. He missed it by a fraction of a second. Below, it was pitch black and smelled like death. The sewer water was up to his knees. Rats skittered in the dark. Lukas flicked his lighter. The feeble flame revealed an endless, moss-covered tunnel stretching into the gloom. He started walking. Every splash of water sounded like a footstep behind him. The echo of his own breathing mocked him. Was his father really CIA? Or was Eclipse just another liar in a city of liars? What if this notebook was a trap? What if the Americans just put a bullet in his head the moment he surfaced? His legs were turning to lead. Suddenly, he stopped. Dead end. A massive iron grill blocked the path. A heavy padlock secured it. Eclipse had only given him one key, the one for the manhole. Where was the key for this? Lukas rattled the grill in a panic. It didn't budge. Was he going to die down here, trapped like a rat? Defeated, he slumped against the cold bars. The lighter flickered and died. Out of gas. Darkness swallowed him whole. Clack clack. A mechanical sound came from the other side of the grill. Someone was there. Lukas scrambled to his feet, clutching the notebook tight. If it was the Stasi, he'd drop the book into the muck and destroy it. A flashlight beam cut through the dark from the other side. It didn't blind him. It was pointed low, at the water. A voice called out, German but with a distinct Western twang. Lukas? You alone? Lukas couldn't speak. His throat was sandpaper. Easy, kid. Eclipse sent us. Stand back. Lukas stepped back. Sparks flew like fireworks in the dark as bolt cutters chewed through the lock. 2 minutes later, the grill swung open. 2 men stood there. Civilian clothes, but the weapons in their hands were unmistakable American M16s. Give us the book, one of them said, extending a hand. Lukas pulled the notebook against his chest. First, tell me, who was he? Was my father really one of yours? The man softened his expression. Your father wasn't ours, Lukas. He was a patriot. He realized that wall didn't just divide a city. It divided souls. He wanted you out. Come on. Lukas emerged from the tunnel. Ahead was a ladder leading up. Above, he could see stars. When he climbed out, the first light of dawn was breaking. The air tasted different here. No gunpowder. No fear. He looked back. Across the barbed wire, East Berlin was shrouded in a gray mist. Somewhere in that fog lay his father's body, his old life, and every memory he had ever made. Lukas Hartmann, former Grenztruppen guard, stood on West Berlin soil. He was free, but he knew he would carry the cost of this freedom for the rest of his life. In his hand, the notebook caught the morning light. It wasn't just a diary anymore. It was his father's final gift, a new life, bought with his own.